Hello everyone, DJ here. Welcome to my channel. You're always welcome, as you know. But don't forget to subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny, it doesn't cost you a cent, it doesn't even cost you a rupee. It's totally free to subscribe to my channel. So please do so. It enables me to continue. What I want to talk to you today about is something that's close to my heart, and it's this, forgive me for saying, conspiracy theory. We're being fed a steady diet of fear-based messaging which creates a sense of paralysis, preventing individuals from taking meaningful steps to address climate changes and challenges. An article in Forbes entitled "Why Climate Alarmism Hurts Us All" highlights the negative impact of excessive fear-mongering. The piece argues that promoting catastrophic scenarios without context can lead to public apathy. We just accept it, and we hear it all, and eventually we just turn off. Climate scientist Richard Linsden is a vocal critic of the consensus of climate change. According to Linsden, the scientific community has not yet reached full agreement, and he warns that alarmist perspectives can impede objective scientific discourse. He believes that the narrative surrounding climate change is often more focused on fear than facts. For Linsden, the key is to maintain a balanced dialogue that considers all scientific viewpoints, and he argues that by labelling climate change as an impending catastrophe, it stifles valuable research and debate. Another climatologist, John Christie, has expressed doubts about the reliability of the climate models that predict future warming. He suggests that the models often overestimate the extent of the warning, leading to misguided policy decisions. A study at the Pew Research Centre, which is a very famous and very valuable research centre, reveals many individuals feel overwhelmed by dire predictions, leading to a sense of hopelessness or indifference. In his book, Climate Change Isn't Everything, Liberating Climate Politics from Alarmism, Mike Hulme explores the dangers of alarmist narratives. By framing climate change within a broader context, he believes that a more realistic solutions can be developed. His work challenges policymakers to think beyond limited threats and consider long-term strategies. Fear-based messaging can create a sense of paralysis, preventing individuals from taking meaningful steps to address climate challenges. The article calls for a shift towards more measured communications and strategies that empower individuals to make informed choices. In an article that appeared in Forbes, it was stated, Why climate alarmism hurts us all highlights the negative impact of excessive fear-mongering. Fear-based messaging can create a sense of paralysis, preventing individuals from taking meaningful steps to address and make informed choices. By focusing on the solutions and opportunities, communicators can inspire action and engagement. This perspective encourages positive and proactive approach to climate issues. Now, what I'd say here is all these climatologists, these scientists on climate, are saying it's fear-mongering. And yes, there is. I mean, everything. It was fear-based messaging. It was fear-based, creates paralysis. It's obvious. All these climatologists are missing the point. Look at this statement made by one of them. By providing a comprehensive view, communicators can empower individuals to make informed decisions. The goal is to build a narrative that encourages constructive engagement and collective problem solving. Now, you may wonder, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with thinking? And what is wrong with thinking? These organisations behind the alarming predictions of global warming catastrophes are also behind the One World Rule, the Gender 21 and Bohemian Grove organisations, and others that advocate the philosophy of control of the public through fear. These climatists, they were missing the point. Yes, they saw the fear, but they didn't realise it's manufactured. This fear leads to put their energies into following the elite. So the public are created fearful, and then they put their energies into following the elite for protection against the common foe. In this, the common foe is often quoted is the alarmist climate change propagation theory, the propaganda theory. Distractions from what dictators are doing has always been the gameplay by those who seek control. In Rome, the emperors gave the people they sought to control gladiator fights, wild-starving animals against slaves. Roman churches, which were Christians tied to the stakes, oil and fat poured over them, and then they were set alight. That's where we get the firework, the Roman candle. In George Orwell's novel 1984, the people were told their country was in a hard-fought, decade-long war against multiple enemies, that food and freedoms had to be reduced because of spies and the shortage of goods going to supplement the war effort that kept them free. The fact that no one but the elite were free did not occur to the downtrodden public because they'd already been enticed into a fear, and they looked to their governments and their elite, who were not elected, to look after them. Mandatory lockdowns ensued. Arrests were made on those people who did not observe the arbitrary rules. Institutions were lauded, such as hospitals and nurses employed therein, who were allowed to go out and mingle. Now, what am I referring to? We have seen the effects upon Western nations. During the COVID epidemic, 2020 to 2022, in which freedoms of movement, freedoms of association, freedom to visit families, freedom to assemble, freedom to go to a shop were curtailed in an excuse the government was worried about your health and was implementing the loss of freedom for your health's sake. These mandatory lockdowns ensured arrests were made of people who did not observe their arbitrary rules. Institutions were lauded, such as hospitals and nurses employed, who were allowed to go out and mingle. Those designated as essential workers were also allowed to go out to work and then go home to their loved ones, with no one seemingly questioning how they were not getting sick and passing the illness on to those at home. Nurses, doctors, essential workers, they went out in the public, they went on public transport, they went into their workplaces, hospitals and factories and offices, and then they went home to their families, their wives and their aunties and their uncles and their fathers and their children. They weren't questioned by the public, who were hiding in their homes, told they couldn't leave. No one questioned that six people were allowed to gather together, but a seventh person could not join them. No one questioned why the seventh person would be the one to bring COVID virus into the group. Why not? Why would a seventh person cause any problem? But the law, the government said, we're protecting your health, so a seventh person cannot join you. These are some of the factual criteria behind global warming scenarios, the epidemic scenarios. We've all heard them before, several times: mad cow disease, monkeypox, AIDS, bird flu, swine flu. The scare tactics go on and on and on, but the fears are never as prevalent as they were made out to be. It was all fear tactics. Yes, these diseases did exist. Yes, they do kill in small numbers, and yes, they are manufactured in a laboratory by mankind's own scientists. And yes, they play their purpose in keeping the majority of the population under control. Why do Western police people target people who speak out? Right on the internet, their thoughts was so little actual crime they're supposed to be tackling, the police are supposed to be tackling, remains unsolved. Why are people being arrested, taken to court for praying silently within their own heads, while shoplifters are allowed to go on their merry way? Because shoplifters are not voicing an opinion, but a silent prayer is a loud shout. All is not okay. Climate change alarmists are part and parcel of a wider field of controlling the narrative, and the narrative is control of the people. President Trump of the USA knows this. 2 attempts on his life demonstrate what the elite have on their minds. I'm going to say to you now, what do you think? Are you being controlled by these fear tactics of climate change, of diseases, of that keep you at home, keep you worried, keep you alarmed, that you're frightened to speak out, you're frightened to write in on the internet anymore, in Facebook and YouTube and X and whatever, because the governments have told them. The EU at the moment has told Musk that he's got to throw out, he's got to expose those who write controversial comments in X. It is a form of control. It's a big form of control of what we say, what we do, what we think. And control through climate control fears, through disease control fears, from assembling together, from visiting the poor, visiting the sick, visiting our families, having more than 6 in a group, is fear, fear, fear. We've got to stand up and say, no. I don't mean violently. I mean, I've been stopped several times because I will not be told. I've never been vaccinated. I've never wore a mask. I am 75 years of age. I have a very bad heart. But I have been out in 2020, 2021. I went for walks. I met a lady with her dog on a towpath, canal towpath. She was standing on a little bridge that goes over to a cemetery, and she said, "Wonderful." And I said, "What's wonderful?" And she said, You're not wearing a mask." And I said, "Well, neither are you." And she said, "No, I don't believe in them." I said, "No, well, neither do I." She said, Can you come over?" So I went over. She got a lovely dog. I stroked the dog, stood up, and she hugged me. And a man came along. I thought he was homeless to begin with, but it turned out he was an essential worker, and he was very, very dirty and scruffy. And he came over, and he wasn't wearing a mask, and he hugged, and he said, "Can I have a hug as well?" And the three of us were hugging each other, and we had a chat, and we didn't get ill. Now, I know the group I used to be in my church group, I used to be in, they closed down when the government said you can't assemble. They stopped singing hymns when the government said you cannot sing. They wore masks, and when they were told they couldn't go out, they stopped the assemblies. They were all vaccinated, so they all were vaccinated 4 or 5 times. They wore the mask. They practiced this 2 meter distancing. They've all had COVID. So I'm sad to say, but one of the young couples, the lady got pregnant. The baby died at birth. She was warned it would. The minister has leukemia. His wife has some other cancer which I haven't found out. Others have been ill with prolonged COVID, whatever they call it. They took all the precautions. I didn't. It was a fear tactic that went drastically wrong for the people who fell for the fear. What's your comments? I'd love to hear your comments. I bet you don't agree with me, but it's all part of the debate, isn't it? And part of freedom is the right to talk, the right to express your opinion and the right to debate and be told, no, I don't agree, and put an alternative view forward. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to leave it at that. And so until the next time, be safe, be good, and goodbye from DJ. Bye.